I just think that they view this like the midterms as a speed bump on the way to their eventual clash with Trump again. Because that's the only thing. So whether or not Biden is the guy or not, it almost doesn't really matter in this context, because I think they believe they're going to have to run against Trump again. And so that has shaded and I think really distorted dramatically their thinking about how this will play now, because this is why you have these January 6 hearings. This is why all this stuff is going on. And this is why the Mar-a-Lago raid, all these different issues, they're still preparing for the fight against Trump in their own mind.
Hey, everybody, we're excited for election night, as many of you are as well. We're going to be having an incredible party in Nashville, and we want you to be able to hang out with us as a part of our VIP family.
So all you got to do is sign up, become a Clay and Buck VIP, and you can stream and join us. Some of your favorite people are going to be there, too. It's going to be an election night bonanza. We'll see you then. Clay reminded me, because we have conversations whenever we go into a commercial break and we do a little reset, reminded me that Joe Biden is going to be speaking tonight. And I had forgotten this. I said, wait, what's the speech about? This is from the Washington Post. Biden is tonight delivering a speech on democracy near the Capitol. The speech is according to the White House, about preserving and protecting our democracy, and that's also the DNC, Democratic National Committee, saying that. He's going to address the threat of election deniers and those who seek to undermine faith in voting and democracy. Okay. Now, we were talking about political malpractice before and the red tsunami that we believe is likely coming. Clay, I have a theory I want to test out. Testing out a theory on air is always a little bit risky, because I haven't sanity tested this one with anybody yet. But I was just thinking this. I want to put this out there for you and millions of our closest friends. I think that, to my point about the Democrat apparatus and fighting for the last war, not the one they're in, I might have to add to that. I think they're fighting for the next one by preparing for the last one and not worried about this midterm election so much. Here's what I mean. To me, all this democracy denial stuff and or election denial and democracy under peril, yes, it plays to their base, and they're playing defense in places like Washington State. We're going to talk to Tiffany Smiley. They need base turnout in a big way in some of these races, or else it's going to be a total annihilation at the ballot box. I think they're sticking with this because I think that they in their minds, okay, maybe it didn't work for the midterms. They're gearing up to run against Trump. That's what I think it's Biden. But even if I know you and I don't see that as playing out the same way, I think that one of the reasons they haven't shifted away from this, because otherwise it looks so inept, Clay. So you see what I'm saying? What do you think about this idea that the reason they're still focused on preserving our democracy in January 6th is that it's not about the midterms? They're fighting the presidential election even now at the expense of being smart about the midterms.
I think that they definitely believe that their strategy to win re-election in 24 is to claim that Republicans are direct threats to democracy because it tests well. But I think also, Buck, the bigger issue is, what is your sales pitch? Like, I always try to take myself out of the equation and just be as rational and objective as possible. In the same way that you have to be when you're a lawyer and you frequently represent sides and you know you've got a bad case. What was the best case that they can make? They tried this like sort of haphazard, Republicans will make inflation worse. That definitely doesn't register. It's a bad argument. It doesn't have any impact. They don't even want to pretend that the border is an issue, so they legitimately can't address it. You've seen them try sort of in another ham-handed fashion to say, actually, crime's not that bad. Those are all really awful arguments. I think the only argument, and then you even saw Joe Biden try to say, hey, COVID's over. I don't think that was an accident. I know they said, oh, Biden misspoke or whatever. I think that was a trial balloon to see if Joe Biden could claim, hey, we got through COVID. Now we can solve all the other issues, but his base wouldn't even allow him to make that argument. And so I think they're left with the best of bad options, which is the only way they can motivate their base. And I think that's what this is about, because I think they've recognized they've lost independents and they've lost Republicans for sure. The only way they can motivate their base, the way Joe Biden frankly got elected, was orange man bad. And I think ultimately he's going back to what worked before because he can't think of any other argument. Now, where I would disagree with your thesis, which I think that's the Biden intent, I believe what's going to happen is we get the red tsunami. And I think almost immediately after these final results come in, there will start to be significant leaks from inside of the Democrat Party about how awful Joe Biden is.
Can I? So for me, it's not. That's why I said the Democrat apparatus. Yeah. I think the Democrat Party, the DNC, CNN, all of them, Democrats in Congress with the Jan 6 hearings, I just think that they view this like the midterms as a speed bump on the way to their eventual clash with Trump again. Because that's the only thing. So whether or not Biden is the guy or not, it almost doesn't really matter in this context, because I think they believe they're going to have to run against Trump again. And so that has shaded and I think really distorted dramatically their thinking about how this will play now, because this is why you have these January 6 hearings. This is why all this stuff is going on. And this is why the Mar-a-Lago raid, all these different issues, they're still preparing for the fight against Trump in their own minds. And, that's all assuming that Trump is the candidate on the Republican side, which I think the betting odds are probably strongly in favor of that. But, Clay, otherwise, they're just lunatics. And I think they are lunatics at some level, but they can be sneaky. They can be cunning.
The one thing that I'm kind of surprised by, I don't disagree. They want to run against Trump because Trump is the only thing that really unites the Democrat Party. Because he as the great Satan, he as the Hitler, I think they legitimately believe that he is Hitler. What I would say is what they're missing there is they ran that campaign in 20. It won because of COVID. If they had run the Trump is Hitler, Trump is everything that's evil, orange man bad campaign in 20, and COVID had never hit, Trump wins a landslide. And so I think not only are they fighting, I think your analysis about a rearguard action, I think they're misidentifying why they won, and won is in quotation marks because there was certainly all the rig job and everything else that was going on. But even with COVID, they won by 40,000 votes. And so I think I think you're correct, looking ahead towards Trump. But here's what surprises me. Trump has actually not really injected himself that aggressively in the midterm at all.
Well, I think that's part of why. So, you think about it like their war game, right? Their plan for this midterm election. I think that, and look at the Mar-a-Lago thing and the January 6 hearings. I thought that I think they believed they'd be able to put Trump on the ballot in some capacity in the minds of voters, even though clearly he's not on the ballot. And that has failed. But part of why I think they're clinging to this, Joe Biden's, Clay, of all the things he could give a speech focused on tonight, threats to our democracy.
I know.
People are ticked off about the high price of gas and food and rent, and they're ticked off about the crime. Instead of being the Joe Biden that they lied to us that we were getting, which would be a grandfather. He could come out tonight like America's grandpa and say, folks, we're going to bring everyone together. We're going to back our cops. We're going to clean up our streets. We're going to get those crime numbers down. We're not going to spend on crazy things. We're just going to protect Social Security. We're going to protect Medicare. We're going to work to make sure that, a fair day's work for a fair day's wage. All the usual stuff. He could do that and maybe help some Democrat candidates for the next week, right? He could actually put a little bit of instead they're doing a threats to our democracy rally next to the Capitol. These people are out of their mind. So I'm just trying to, yes, there's a degree of crazy, but there's always also a degree of calculation, even with the crazy libs. I think that they view it all still as like the existential struggle against Trump. And they're ready for that at the expense of the midterm elections right now.
You ever go to a concert when the person who's performing at the concert has one song you actually want to hear?
Yes, that is. I saw an opening act once where that was the case. The band was the Crash Test Dummies. I'm not ashamed to say it.
All right. So I've been to a lot of concerts over the years where there's like one song people really want to hear. And the band can never open with the one song that people really want to hear because then they've got nothing else. And so they play several other songs that nobody cares about to lead up to the song that people actually care about. And it's their crescendo, it's their finale. I think the Biden administration is that band. I think that they have one hit, and they believe their one hit is democracy is in peril. And so they've tried to go around and say they're going to cut Social Security, they're going to increase inflation, we're actually doing a really good job on crime. They've tried all those. They don't register. And the only thing that registers with their crazy base is democracy's in peril. And so as we sit here 6 days out, Joe Biden has one song that plays at all with the Democrat base, and I think he's going to keep banging that. Now, the problem is, for a lot of people out there who are persuadable, you're like, I don't want to go see that guy. He's only got one song, and the song's not that good in the first place. And I think that's how independents are responding to this. But Buck, to me, what is wild is Joe Biden gave this speech in September. On the Thursday, I believe that college football season started, if I remember correctly, leading into Labor Day. And at that point in time, if you looked at the gambling markets, Joe Biden and the Democrats were in their strongest place that they have ever been. And that speech was such a disaster. The red background, the Emperor Palpatine feel, the Marines standing behind him, that if you look, that literally was the high watermark. And every time since then, they've gone down. To me, Biden is the worst advocate, even for his best hit.
One, I think it's great that the Clay calendar is before or after college football starts.
Yeah,
it's
literally
like
the Thursday opening of college football season was that speech.
It's BCF or ACF after college football. No, I think that the Emperor Palpatine speech, which was universally viewed as a disaster, this again goes to my theory. How could they be so dense as to not learn from that mistake unless they can't turn off this machinery because they think they need it against Trump? And so they won't scale it back. They won't stop talking about this because they think that this has their base mobilized and they need to keep them focused on this issue. Because otherwise, look, we're just trying to make sense of, and this is also, I think, important for us to make sure that we understand really the dynamics playing out right now. I mean, look, if Biden had a strong economy, things would be very different right now, everyone. Just understand that. If he hadn't spent, which is what Democrats always do, but if they hadn't spent us into the worst inflation in 40 years, we wouldn't be looking at this red wave. So they may learn some lessons there, but it is political malpractice the way they have run particularly the last 3 months. It's like, what country are they living in, honestly?
And I'll throw in one little other nugget here, Buck. I think Biden really believes all this. I think he's got dementia. I don't think that his brain works very well. But they have kept surrounding him with historians who initially filled him up with the idea of, hey, you're FDR. And I think that's why he tried to go so big, because he wanted to be a legacy president. And I think they have built him up the idea that he is all that stands between America and the collapse of democracy. I think they have convinced him that's true. And so historians oftentimes are not the best judges of the present day, because history is predicated on oftentimes hundreds of years to look back on it. And I think objectively, Biden is Jimmy Carter and he thinks he's FDR. And that explains a lot of the ways that he's behaving, in that he believes he has to save American democracy like FDR did during the Great Depression in the 1930s. I think he's convinced himself historically that he is FDR. And the reality is he's Jimmy Carter. And if you're Jimmy Carter thinking you're FDR, you actually end up even worse than Jimmy Carter, because you have such a poor read of the larger marketplace of ideas.